Hello, and welcome back to the Live Label Free podcast. I'm your host, Livia, an autism and eating disorder recovery coach and author that's on a mission to help neurodivergent individuals and their loved ones turn their mess into their message. Last week, I recorded an episode titled How Much Food is Too Much Food in Eating Disorder Recovery, in which I share my autistically nuanced perspective of why the typical eating disorder recovery claim that there's no such thing as too much food is not always helpful for neurodivergent people. In that episode, I mentioned how I set constraints for myself around food, which allowed me to more easily honor my extreme hunger once I realized I could no longer restrict. In that episode, I promised that I would record a dedicated episode on this concept of no longer being able to restrict after an eating disorder, so here we are today. And I'm especially excited to record this episode for you right now because it's Sunday, September 22nd, 2024, as I'm recording this, and I mention that because this morning, I finally finished writing my next book, which is called How to Get Out of Quasi-Recovery. And I know I say this about practically every single thing I've written/created, but this book, damn you guys, one of the best masterpieces I have ever written. And because I'm so excited about it, I'm actually going to be reading you a chapter from the book titled, dun dun dun, No Longer Being Able to Restrict. Surprise, right? Okay, now I already know that I'm going to get questions about when this book is coming out because, let's be honest, I think everyone in eating disorder recovery wishes there was a book on how to get out of quasi-recovery. I know I would have wanted this book, and well, that's exactly why I wrote it. But going back to the question on when it's coming out, I don't know yet, that's the truth, but I am hoping sometime in 2025. In the meantime, I first have the Dutch translation of Rainbow Girl coming out, for which I received the proof copy last week, and again, damn, I'm so freaking proud of this. I am also so close to launching my Autistically ED-free group coaching program, and of course, not to mention still marketing all my other books, including Rainbow Girl, How to Beat Extreme Hunger, and Nourishing Neurodiversity, all while, keeping up with one-on-one coaching and this podcast and social media. Yep, it's a lot, but I'm so passionate about what I do, so I really wouldn't want it any other way. If you want to stay updated on all the developments behind Live Label Free, including the launch of my upcoming program and this quasi-recovery book I speak of, be sure to get on the list to receive my weekly email at livelabelfree.com/join. Not only do I send you more free content and value, but if I'm ever running sales or promotions, and sometimes I even give away stuff for free, like I recently sent out 20 free audiobook copies of my Extreme Hunger book. But anyways, if you want more free value from me, be sure you're on my list. So again, that's livelabelfree.com/join. And without further ado, let's dive into today's episode about no longer being able to restrict.
Gotta put one foot in front of the other, and you'll be around the corner soon.
Welcome to the Live Label Free podcast, where we talk about autism, ADHD, eating disorders, existentialism, and everything in between. I'm your host, Livia. Now let's get into it. A tough realization you'll face in discovery from a restrictive eating disorder, and yes, I use the word discovery very consciously instead of the word recovery, and if you want to know why, you'll have to read my book, How to Beat Extreme Hunger, because I actually describe why replacing the word recovery with the word discovery is one of the key components of becoming free from an eating disorder. So again, I'm just going to start reading this again because I did want to mention that discovery piece because earlier in my quasi-recovery book, I obviously explain it more in depth. So, if you're gonna be reading this chapter and no longer being able to restrict it, you'll have some background. So I'm just gonna start over. Okay. A tough realization you'll face in discovery from a restrictive eating disorder is that you'll never be able to go back to the way things were when you were malnourished. My first encounter with extreme hunger showed me that my body had adapted and would no longer tolerate famine. Despite logically knowing why my body was demanding so much junk food, for it's the most efficient way to come out of energy deficit, my mindset, still rooted in scarcity, was convinced I could somehow override my body's innate wisdom. After gaining a significant amount of weight in a rather short period of time, I decided enough was enough. I had to stop this extreme hunger madness and made a pact with myself to lose the quote-unquote extra weight. Just like I had so diligently done when my eating disorder first started, I cut back on sweets, used a little less butter when frying, and forced myself to eat vegetables in an attempt to stay physically full. But yet again, a mere attempt was as far as this diet would go. I'd wake up in the morning, full of euphoria and motivation as I embarked on my fresh start. But when I broke my fast, any hope of sustaining the restriction, let alone long enough to lose weight, crumbled as quickly as the cookies I shoved into my mouth. Before I knew it, I was back at the kitchen counter, stuffing my face with said cookies, bread, entire jars of peanut butter, and anything else I believed I couldn't be trusted around. As my weight fluctuated in the years since starting recovery, the restriction rebounds only got more extreme. Any signal of scarcity caused my body's alarm bells to go off even louder, a biological warning to create an energetic buffer by eating more. It became harder and harder to slip into an energy deficit, so much so that today, just the thought of restricting fills me with anxiety. There is definitely a sense of grief regarding my inability to go back to the eating disorder, even if I wanted to, but what's a lot stronger is a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for my body's ability to heal itself, and awe for how it's adapted to support that healing. No matter how long you've been deprived and punished your body, it will show up for you when you provide permission. Yet another reason to stop waiting and to turn "it's too late" into "it's about time." So, that was the chapter, no longer being able to restrict, and yes, it's a short chapter because that's how I write. If you've read any of my other books, you'll find that the chapters are all quite short, and I do this very intentionally because A, I'm neurodivergent and do not have a long attention span. If I see a long chapter, well, it's game over, friends. There is no hope for me in finishing that book. And B, I like to cut through the fluff and get to the freaking point. The amount of books I've read where they just go on for pages and pages about something that I'm literally like, you could have said this in 2 sentences, is honestly just too often for me to even fathom. So I'm very curious if anyone else has this experience, and I'm also curious to hear what you thought of this episode. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a big thumbs up and leave a comment if you're listening on YouTube. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or another podcast player, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a positive rate and review. Positive ratings and reviews make such a big difference in helping more people to find this podcast so we can break the stigmas around eating disorders together. I am so grateful for all of your support, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next episode. Bye-bye for now.
Baby, just one foot in front of the other.